That's a wrap on season 1 of Trust the Process podcast. Thank you for listening, sharing, and sending us your questions and comments. We've enjoyed sharing our takeaways with you. The final episode of this season is a mashup of all your favorite clips from the past year. See you in 2026 with more builds, stories, and lessons from the field. Ever wonder what really happens behind the scenes in construction, real estate, and development? We pull back the curtain on the new home construction industry, the real estate market, and the trends shaping it all. Discover the stories, insights, and expertise behind the process of building a new home. Join us for Trust the Process podcast, and let's build something great together.
All luxury homes are custom, but not all custom homes are luxury.
Yes.
And I say that, I mean, there are some really nice production tract homes that you could consider luxury, especially in some higher cost markets.
Sure.
But for the most part, you don't have to be in the luxury space to be a custom home builder. Some rural areas and some rural states, you could be building in Kansas and maybe you're a custom home builder, but your average sales price is $450,000. So I look at it that way. Something that is not being replicated at scale. Irresponsible water management is what equals more water usage. Agriculture in an arid, dry climate equals water usage. So as long as we know what we're dealing with, I'm not advocating to get rid of every farm west of the Mississippi. I'm just saying we have to acknowledge that the Colorado River is an agricultural water supply more than it is anything else. And then after that, it's its own vegetation. Then every city on the Colorado River, and then evaporation. It's just crazy to me that that's where the water goes. And another kind of interesting thought, and this is way down the rabbit hole, but the city kind of owns your property too. You're basically in business with your city. And if you don't think that, just stop paying your property taxes for a while. And that house becomes theirs. So really every home that's built, the city might see as their home. They have a vested interest in that home as well. It's their tax base. So they might own that house one day if you're not careful.
Welcome back to Trust the Process, podcast where we talk about real estate, new home construction, the housing industry, and everything in between. Today we are going to talk about a topic that's a little controversial, especially here in the desert: water. So I know that just stirred a lot of people up right away.
I can hear them. I can hear the trolls in our comments
all
right
builders taking all the water, building so many homes. And so wanted to do a bit of a deep dive on this, just so that we could sort of lay the foundation for the awareness of the water. Obviously there is a conservation effort, but some of that, and then maybe answer some of the questions that we get from people about water and about building as how it relates to water. So I'll let you take our resident expert. I'll let you take.
And this is not one I'll claim full expertise on, because there's geologists that study this and there's a lot of things that go into it. So I don't proclaim to be an expert, but it is something that's relevant to the industry, and it's relevant to being a citizen of the Southwest. You know, none of us are probably supposed to be here. Yeah, I pretty much took some of the most hostile land in the country and said, let's put a couple million people in it. You're creating something that's deeply needed. So I think that there's a resentment that comes with that, just like you might resent oil companies, because you feel like, well, we need them. We need gas, right? We need gasoline for our car, and you're charging this, and your profits were this, and you're yes, I get it. They're making something that is a necessity, but they are a business, and it's not a builder's responsibility. I can have a mission in my life that I would love to put more homes into the ground or change the way home building is done. But at the end of the day, it's not my responsibility to make the real estate market affordable.
We thought it would be fun to invite you into that behind the scenes process, seeing how we get from raw land to a finished product where we're handing off the keys to a happy homeowner, and how all of those pieces come together. As you can imagine, it's not always a seamless process. So there's a lot of ebb and flow and highs and lows, and we'll take you through the successes of the journey, and I'm sure there will be a lot of surprises that we don't even know are coming.
Wouldn't be new construction if there were surprises. Everyone is an amateur economist when it comes to their home purchase. And I think that you're 100% correct in that they don't know how to feel about the interest rates. They don't even know what a 7% rate translates to in a payment. They don't realize that
it's true.
That is a huge, when most of your amortization on the front end is interest, 7% versus 3.5% is a doubling of your mortgage payment, because so much of it is interest. So it is a really big deal.
This proves that each one is really a labor of love. And so by the time you see it there, people don't always know how much emotion has gone into that, or how,
Right.
how much you have learned to love that project, because you could have bailed on it and you didn't.
You could.
So
Yeah, exactly. By the time you're going vertical, you've passed on several off ramps. You're like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that one. I don't want that one. I want to see it through.
So you need a third party, an adult in the room, i.e. the government, that regulates it for you, because I can't go start a jetliner company tomorrow. Although don't put it past me.
That's true.
No, but I think
Give you any idea?
don't give me any ideas. If you also look at back even just a few generations ago, my grandmother, still going, never rode a bike and never had a driver's license. So she lives in New York. She walks everywhere, takes the city bus, or my cousins bring her, my uncle brings her, and they all take care of her. Right. So the idea of her living out in a suburb would just be anathema to everything that she's ever grown up thinking. It's just, no, I'm not. Why would I do that? So it's as crazy as putting one of us in a 4th floor walk up.
Yeah,
and just
public transportation.
And she gets on the bus. She's 92 years old. She gets on the bus.
Yeah,
Like, wow, Grandma, that's amazing.
not it just doesn't happen much in
No.
Vegas. It doesn't happen here as much as it does in other cities.
Right.
How do we decide what's going to go on any specific lot? It's kind of a catch-22, because you're building out to a product that you're going to market months from now. So it's anticipating what's going to, what there might be an appetite in that area for, and how you put that pricing together.
And now this year in 2025, we'll deliver around $30 to $32 million worth of new homes.
That's remarkable.
Yes, so it's quite a ride.
And today we're going to talk about
What are we going to talk about? Oh, bright spots and headwinds.
bright spots and headwinds.
Which sounds like a 80s punk band.
It should be.
A hair
If
band.
it isn't, it should
Right,
be.
I like it. Yeah. So if the imported cost is roughly half of that, usually every person that touches it doubles, right? Generally speaking. So that means that $40,000 package may be a $20,000 import, but it already had a 14% tariff on it at that time. So maybe the raw cost was $17,000. So if we add 60% tariff to that, that's around $8,500. Let's call it $9,000. So instead of $40,000, I'm at $9,000. And that's if they went all the way up to 60%. As a builder, I fatigue much quicker, because even though this is my business, I already, when you have young kids and they're going to freak out over one thing, and you're so tired of that friction point, whether it's brushing their teeth or whether it's going to bed, sometimes this business feels like that. Like, can we change this refrigerator to the other side of the kitchen? No. And when you say no, you're waiting for the tantrum, you're waiting for the build-up, you're waiting for the 4 a.m. email or 3 a.m. email where they're fired up and they're got a bunch of things to say to you.
Yep.
And that's where I fatigue homes. When you think about, I have to explain this so many times, that's why I wanted to make it an episode. So, number one, zoning. So the zoning is, you would have to have a lot of political will to change that zoning, because not only do we have minimum lot sizes, we have minimum setbacks. Many times we have minimum structure sizes too. So it would be illegal to build a 400 square foot home on that lot. There are certain size requirements. Maybe it's 1,500, maybe it's 1,000. And that's saying the land's not in any kind of HOA or has any kind of special conditions that way. So that's strike number one. I'm only doing usually one-off. I mean, we have a batch running through of 4 in SouthShore. So those, I had the lots, and I was able to put the same plan on 2 of them, and then a similar plan on the 3rd, and then a single story on the other, just to mix up my product offering. But once I had all the architecturals designed, now we're pouring those foundations this week, so I have to order windows. So I ordered windows on 1. I'll order windows, so this week I have to have all the windows ordered, because they're 6 weeks out. So as the lead time of items starts to come to where I need to have them ordered so that they're here on time, that's when I start making decisions. Aluminum, thermally broken bronze aluminum windows, bronze color aluminum windows, are roughly twice as much as the same product in vinyl, and then fiberglass somewhere in between.
Energy efficiency and some.
There's some. Do I buy a name brand?
And with that one, when you're building in SouthShore, you're limited by the HOA too. They have criteria that you have to meet for the exterior.
Oh, so, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, you.
I just can't. I can't change anything on the outside. Once I've submitted it to the HOA, submitted my design and my elevations, that's it. I can change windows, but I have to reapply. So this one, I'm deciding to do a bronze window. I just have to send it in. That's an approved window.
Yeah, so that's something I've never been afraid of. I'll jump. I don't even need to know there's a parachute there. So
I'm good with that.
True. That's entirely true. You will learn throughout the course of this podcast.
Yeah.
Michael is fearless about moving
Thank
into
you.
new territory. And
Yeah,
it's
I've never.
It's a gift. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's remains to be seen, but it has so far been a blessing.
Let's find that price. Let's find that product that will carry that sales price, because we think the neighborhood and the lots can carry that sales price. What kind of designs, finishes, and square footage and amenities are people going to expect for that sales price? And those are knowables. I can get an idea of where the market is.
And those can change a little bit. The finishes, we're going to use this quality of a product.
Yeah, we can do Whirlpool versus Jen Air if we find that.
We've kind of maxed it, or if heaven forbid anything should happen, or something opens up and then you realize you want to build a little bit higher.
Which I'm doing on my Serene project. Las Vegas recycles, this sounds hyperbolic, 99% of its interior water usage. So you could run every faucet all day long, flush every toilet consistently, and as long as it's hitting a drain, 99% of it gets recycled back into the water supply. So an apartment complex with 99% of its water use being used indoors, maybe a little bit of desert landscaping in the perimeter, and then 99% of that being recycled, that's not where we need to worry about our water.
And to give the the viewers or listeners kind of an insight, in 2025, trust home builders will build and sell about $35 million worth of homes. So going from one little house 9 years ago, not even 9 years, barely 9 years ago, going from one little house for $280,000 to $35 million worth of real estate. And that's just what's on the books now. And there's always more. My gears are always turning. Right? And for sure.
So I don't proclaim to be an expert, but it is something that's relevant to the industry, and it's relevant to being a citizen of the Southwest. None of us are probably supposed to be here. I pretty much took some of the most hostile land in the country and said, let's put a couple million people. Right. Sounds good to me.
But we do live here, and we are realtors, and you've been a broker, and now you're a builder, and so you have a perspective that overlays, and we've answered these questions and had these conversations with so many people over the years as it relates to housing. So while you maybe aren't an expert in terms of the geological sense, I think in terms of the housing market and the Las Vegas trends and what we understand about the water
and the greater Southwest,
exactly. I think there's definitely an expertise that follows. So you can wear the hat on this.
Okay, you're right. And I did get grilled a lot on this, and even before I was a builder and developer, and now I definitely get grilled on it now, but I remember as a broker, people would ask, "Well, were you worried about water?" And we the bottom line is that we're here. We weren't probably not supposed to be in the middle of the Mojave Desert or in the middle of Arizona or in the middle of Inland Empire. A lot of California's desert, and a lot of population lives, in desert or even arid climates like Denver, and just really anything west of the Mississippi is kind of technically arid. I guess until you get to the Pacific Northwest, but a lot of the population that west of the Mississippi lives in arid climates, so water is a huge concern. And I'm not an insurance expert, but everything is about the likelihood of an event, a major loss happening in X number of years over the amount of value of that loss. So if a fire is an every 50-year event, that property becomes insurable. They're pretty much having to hit you with a 2% risk. So your property's $1 million. 2% of that, if you have a 1 in 50-year chance of a total loss, just general, there's more that goes into these calculations than that, but in general, that's a $20,000 a year policy because it's a 2% risk of a loss. So when you couple that with other natural disasters and other overlays, and then just an overall appetite for wanting to be in that business, at the end of the day, insurance is a capitalist endeavor. So you're going to have people that want to take that risk. Even if the math is $20,000, maybe the market has policies priced at $40,000, and it just might be an uninsurable, insurmountable hill to climb. Production homes are what we might call a cookie cutter suburban house. Neighborhood maybe probably 50 homes or greater, generally built by a publicly traded home builder. You need very deep pockets to undertake subdivisions at large, to hold the land, to hold the infrastructure, and the amount of manpower just in managing projects at large requires you to be a very well-funded like I said, generally publicly traded companies.
Really
At the end of the day, it's housing,
process,
right? Housing is a basic need and a luxury good at the same time. And a production home can be a luxury good. Definitely does not have to be custom to be a luxury good. So, and a custom home can be basic housing depending on where you live. It's just kind of the nature of who built it, what was the process like, what was the end user's involvement in the process, and that's kind of how. But it's a Venn diagram, and a lot of it overlaps.
Now you have your demo costs, or even if they were to buy a home with you, one of our homes that's completely finished and it's the wrong cabinet color, let's just use that as an example. They've got to go in, they've got to do the demo, they've got to hire the labor, they have to order the product, they have to, so all of those things,
those variables that now
and
they're shouldering, right?
Sure. So it is a real cost. It's a hard cost. It's an absolute cost, and it's something that has to be factored in either way. So it's a convenience.
And a lumber package, just to pull back the curtain a little bit, a lumber package on a luxury home, you know what, a good rule of thumb, a lumber package on a house is around $10 a square foot. It's going to depend on ceiling heights and different things. That's not including your trusses, your floor trusses, your roof trusses. But a lumber package is around, so if you build a 4,000 square foot home, it's $40,000. Once you've signed off on everything, design-wise, as I mentioned, it sees 5 different engineers. It's going to see an electrical engineer to lay out the electrical schematic and do the load calculations. It's going to see a plumbing engineer that's going to draw where all the gas lines, waste lines, and supply lines go. It's going to have an HVAC, what we call a mechanical engineer. These plans are called MEPs or MEPs. So that's 3 engineers right there. And then you'll have your structural engineer after your soils engineer. That's why I hesitated to say 5, because you could argue it's 6. Because we have a soils engineer that goes out and bores the soil and does compaction tests and says, okay, your footers need to be this deep and your load bearing on this soil, maybe the soil needs to come out, which we call over-Xing. You're over-excavating it and then putting it back at a more compacted. And usually having third-party engineers test that during construction or watch it, what we call lifts. So usually every foot. That's down the road. That's once we've broken ground. But those are the things that are called out during those tests between the structural engineer talking with the geotechnical engineer, working along with the architect and the MEP engineer. So they all do need to talk to each other. And that's where a builder is kind of acts as the liaison, because no one's going to own your project the way you're going to own it. Your builder is your second best proxy for that. So if you're having, you're employing a custom home builder, you want someone that you can trust, that has the experience, that can act as your advocate to say, oh, we've reviewed these plans. This is something I commonly see. The structurals are over-engineered because an engineer's main purpose is not to save you money and build costs. It's to limit liability on his own license. So I just had a project in SouthShore, one of the ones we'll cover in a later episode, that had a concrete bid come back at $93,000. A home that I expected of $45,000 to $50,000. And you get the bid and you go, no, we're re-engineering this house. I looked at it. He way over-engineered it for the soils report. He did footers that were 2 times wider, 2 times deeper. What we saw was, the little bit of, liability avoidance. So I went and shopped it to another engineer, paid for another set of structural plans. But that $6,000 saved me $50,000 worth of concrete slab. So well worth it. And then other efficiencies I picked up. Huge. And that's why the building industry is not for the faint of heart. When you have 15 of those and you make a $50,000 mistake, it can be really painful. Costly. Yeah. And then the other engineer, the final engineer, would be your civil engineer, who's creating your grading plan and creating your site plan and showing where all the water is going to go and how the home is going to sit and how high the pad elevations are. And that's your last engineer. And then you submit that to the city.
How does that zoning get initiated? Where does it come from originally? That's a deep one. Okay, we'll save that for another time.
I wish there was something more than water in this. Ponder that. Where is all the land? Why are we in a land shortage on paper, but not in reality, right? If we were to drop an alien into any major U.S. city and you said, believe it or not, one of our scarcest assets as a city is our land, they would beam you up and shoot you into a comet.
Welcome back to Trust the Process, podcast where we... Yes. Wow. Okay.
What are we doing here? Making cookies or muffins?
Can we?
That
I know how to do. The 3D printing models that come together and that kind of thing. I mean, there's some of that happening in
They look
factories.
like beehives, In fact, a big publicly traded company did a whole neighborhood in Texas of 3D printed homes. And it's great. And that's another thing people will ask me. Tiny homes and then somewhat less frequently 3D printed homes. But the funny thing is, what problem did that solve? new homes carry around a 25% premium over resale homes. That's just the market speaking. I can't dictate the market, good or bad. So if my homes carry an extra 25% margin, or even your average production home carries a 25% margin over a 15-year-old home, it looks like the builder is charging $750,000 for the same thing you could get as a resale for $625,000 or $600,000. But what you're not factoring into the equation is that all those components are near the end of their functional life. All the expensive things are coming up due, or if it's a 25-year-old home, all your windows need to be replaced, and components, or the floor plans are dated. The market value is there at about a 25% premium. So we're using a quarter, 75%. We're using 75% of the water that we were using 20 years ago, and we grew by 750,000 people. That's good news.
That's great. Yes.
So it shows you that growth does not equal more water usage. Yes. Irresponsible water management is what equals more water usage. Agriculture in an arid, dry climate equals water usage. So if I'm building a 4,000 square foot home, I'm spending on the order of $60,000 before my permit. And then the permit is generally based on the size of the home, how many fixtures are in it. So your permit is, in our market, is generally on a home like that, another $8,000 to $10,000. And plan check fees are another $1,500. HOAs usually charge a fee. So on one of our luxury homes in SouthShore in like Las Vegas is just an example between the HOA and the permitting and all of the professions that go into the engineering and architecture. It's around $100,000 before I move my first speck of dirt. $100,000.
Just a home on paper. That's all.
Just a home on paper plus a $500,000 lot, or a $400,000 lot. Right. So there's a lot of guts and glory that goes into before you've mobilized your first labor on site. It's definitely a trying, challenging industry. There's in our jurisdiction, about $1,500 worth of plan check. So I get that they're kind of auditing the plans for code. So, and then the city inspector is auditing the build to the plans. It just kind of cascades down. That being said, the amount of deviation away from the plans and the amount of things that are either not caught in plan check or called out as simple labeling conventions is a step. And then I could build a cardboard box on that, but because of the lot size, because of the location and the zip code, it's a $1.4 million home, even if I built a 2,500 square foot simple basic box. And then you're trying to find the sweet spot where you can maximize your margins. And then say, okay, I can put another $100,000 into this home and sell it for 1.7, and then you kind of start chasing your tail until you hit your limiter, and you say, okay, now let's start working backwards. So I understand why, and I wanted to give our viewers that context that I'm not anti-regulation. I love the idea that we have better building standards today than we did even 20, 25 years ago. So that being said, I want to trash the codes for a while. You're ready to sign at what you thought was a $2,200 mortgage payment, now is a $2,850. Right. And some people just literally no longer could qualify.
You're right on the line. If you're just barely buyers are just barely there.
That's right.
Margin, and if there's that little bit of swing, knocks them right out of the game.
Exactly. So we can't sustain those payment shocks, and spoiler alert, a lot of move up and move up 2 buyers stretch it as well. Right. So really had a lot of cancel. It's not my responsibility to make them love this house. I'm building this house. If they love it, then they should buy it. And if there's things that they want to do to it after to make them love it more, that's on them. I can't be responsible for making sure they walk in on day one and saying, this is perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. It's just not realistic. So my point is that all those homes that transact during that time, those people don't have golden handcuffs on them, right? So there are people that just have a 6% rate and just say, well, I am moving for this job opportunity or this lifestyle change, or I'm retiring and I'm not going to spend 3 more winters because my retirement home in Florida or in Las Vegas is going to have a 6% rate instead of a 4% rate. To give them credit, Zillow has wildly disrupted the real estate market, and I think in almost every good way possible. It gave buyers a lot more authority, gave buyers a lot more knowledge of the market. Buyers can watch kind of how everything's trending, but more than that, sellers also know. Many times a broker's going to walk into a house and a seller's already going to know within 5% of what the home's probably truly.
That's how sales prices are set, right? You're looking at the comps, you're looking at the...
That's right. And the sellers are
those aware. Resources online become really great.
That's right. Right. So it really democratized the whole housing market to where brokers did not hold all the info. And amount of data just in photos of homes. I mean, you don't even need to go bring your neighbor a Jello mold anymore because you've already seen 55 photos of their house before they bought it. So, you know, your neighbors know your house as well as you do in many ways, right? So it just kind of was in my opinion, a great positive disruptor. And it's one reason why we took a pause for a couple of years on build to suit clients, because after 2 or 3 years, you are so fatigued of each other.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that can change and didn't turn out the way they thought, and they blame you or whatever. There's always somebody to blame that's not them. Their relationships always struggle.
We appreciate you being open to being on camera.
No problem.
And you look handsome as hell. The hair's looking, he's got his Tanny Engineering shirt on. He's just looking good. Anyway, and maybe when we get some good news on our grading plans, you'll look even better.
In your eyes, hopefully, at least.
Yeah, probably.
What I found interesting when we talk about cycles, the biggest cohort of buyers moving through the system right now is
so interesting. Yeah.
56 years old. 17 years ago, the average buyer moving through the system, the largest cohort, was 39 years old. They're the same people.
The same people.
They're the same people.
17 years later.
17 years later, they're 17 years older. It is the most alarming statistic I've ever seen. It's showing you that there's almost like this property gilded, landed gentry class that's moving through the market. I do find it interesting that not every jurisdiction requires it, so why do some and not others? I can't find a reasoning behind that. You know, we have something on certain permits, standard details. So you don't have to get a soils test to do an in-ground pool. You don't have to do a soils test for a wall, especially a fence. I mean, if you want to do a retaining wall, there are standard details though for Nevada soil. So I just find that interesting that we don't have that for a home, and why that's so cost prohibitive. But after 2 days of agonizing over the plans, I had my coffee, and the first thing that boots up, and it was zoomed in on the common area, almost comedic, like cinematic. And it zooms in, and the screen lights up, and 3575. I'm calculating. It's not 500 times 8. That's 500 times 7. So after all that, I had to scrap it all.
The builders have kind of propped up that real estate market, right? Because we've been able to, we have the kind of margins where we can buy down their rates. We can offer those 2-1 buy downs. If you're a big nationwide tonnage builder, you can do forward commitments where you're giving them 30-year fixed rates at 5%. So we help regulate the market. We give liquidity to the market when we need inventory. We shore up the market when we're worried about over inventorying, especially with the way that the builder business model has changed into they're one part financiers and one part home builders, right? I mean, they get a huge source of revenue by selling mortgages. They get all those ancillary services. They get rebates on appliances, and it really, the home is secondary, right? I mean, that the home is the financial instrument. So, really has kind of helped to balance everything out. It's not a normal market meaning a marketplace, right, where you have buyers and sellers with equal power or equal basis, right? And there's always someone who always has a little bit more power in a market, but builders that can kind of work that market and kind of tweak it to fit their business models. And that being said, that allows the market to be kind of a bystander and the real estate market be kind of a secondary effect.
We build pools at our own cost, and we're spending around $90,000 just in hard costs, equipment, excavation, gunite. I mean, we upgrade a lot of things. They're all smart pools and telecenter run by your phone. But even if I were to trim it down to bare bones, I'd still be spending in the 70s, probably 71, 72. Cabinets are thought of in boxes. You break them into a box. Even if it's, a whole bank of cabinets, it's how many boxes made up that bank of cabinets. We had a house that's just not finishing, that when I really broke it down, this one did sticker shock me. It was $1,200 per box. Because it was 49 boxes, and it was a $62,000 cabinet package.
People are busy, and they got their own lives. They have soccer practice, they have work, they have family, friends. They're doing a temperature check. They're dipping the toe in and then not thinking about it again for a couple months. So that's why it just takes time. Once the news goes sour, it takes a long time for that faith to come back and the confidence to come back. And they don't think about the fundamentals of real estate as an asset class. It's just the bottom line is these are not cars. These aren't even precious metals. These are homes. I mean, they have they're 3D structures. They have emotion, they have feeling, they create the city. I mean, there's no city without houses. Real estate as an asset class, just too resilient and it's too rigid. It's got not nearly enough elasticity in it that would have, this kind of instability that people associate with the stock market or cryptocurrency or whatever.
Right.
And we're going to talk a little bit about market trends as part of this podcast, sprinkled into the drama and spiciness of new home construction. So I hope that people can garner value from this podcast. I know that new home construction and design and real estate and the market are passions of a lot of people. There are a lot of enthusiasts.
It's actually how we connected.
That's right. Springboarding into Las Vegas and other Sunbelt areas, we're seeing finished about 11,500 homes in 2024. Okay. And we expect to finish around that same number in 2025, just based off of what permits are pulled right now. And trends, there's about 9,000 ready to develop lots, and that's just something that could be developed within the next 6 to 9 months. Okay. So there is the lot inventory in Las Vegas. Now, again, most of that's held by those Fortune 500 home builders and publicly traded home builders. Those aren't lots. You can't go buy 9,000 lots in Las Vegas. I would say it's probably 400 lots, and they're all luxury lots for the most part. That you could actually buy in Las Vegas. But there's the lots that are developed. That's not even counting the infrastructure and the work that's going to be happening in the next 3 or 4 quarters that will deliver more ready-to-go lots. So assuming that builders will build on all 9,400 plus additional lots being brought to market, it stands to reason that we'll probably see around the same number of homes delivered, single-family homes, give or take 10%, which is not nothing. 10% of that's still well over 1,000 homes, but I think will be probably not less than 10 and not more than 12,000 homes being completed in a little hack that I do. Hopefully this doesn't publish.
Back of the curtains.
Back of curtains. You actually don't need a permit until you call for your first inspection. This is probably going to get me blacklisted by the city. So I go into it thinking, okay, can we get townhomes in here? Let's just say 2.3 million divided by 23. I'm into $100,000 per pad or door.
Okay.
Very doable in that area, because even a townhome would still sell for $500,000 or $600,000 if I did them right. So then I'm starting there at $100,000. Amazing. Let's do it. So if you're building to that bottom of the market, you're very exposed.
And the greatest underserved market.
It's a positive feedback loop. It's so underserved because it is underserved. As we get in the weeds later on in the podcast, talk about some individual projects that we have coming as a company. And as we're making decisions as to how to build those out, this is informing my decisions. The risk is higher building to the bottom of the market. First, you have less room to go. You have less room to absorb surprises. If you're building at the median, which is in the middle $400,000 range, if you have a $50,000 surprise per home site, it's 10% of the entire end of day sales price. It's risky. If you're building to 150% of the median sales price at $800,000, you have a $50,000 surprise.
Those are the things that I'm excited to expose those pieces. Those are things that people aren't aware of or thought about it from that back end perspective.
Some of these are actually bigger line items than the first three, but they're such integral parts of the house, you would expect them to be higher. So I consider it reverse sticker shock. Oh, that's really... Oh, I still spent 1.7 in build cost, but the lumber was only X number of dollars. And when I was new in this, especially when it was really becoming a true business about 6-7 years ago, I made a lot of mistakes. So I'll humbly admit that. I made a lot of mistakes about letting buyers come in and rule the show. And you felt so gratified. Oh, someone wants to buy something I created. Oh, of course. Oh, yeah, you want to change this? I want you to love it. That lasted about 3 times. And then now it's no. That's why builders set the market, and builders, well, we're in the business of we have to sell them. So we're not holding on to this asset that was part of our retirement. It's, okay, we have to sell so we move on to the next ones, or, we got to get this batch of homes kind of moved through the ecosystem so we can move on to other projects I'm already committed to and money's already on the line.
And we're thinking about selling that before it hits the ground.
Right.
That our whole purpose.
Examples that might maybe wake up the city to say, look, we have to find a happy medium here. We are a growing city. We're a desirable city. And ultimately, people deserve peaceful enjoyment of their property, and that includes improving it and making it better and putting it into the city itself. Otherwise, we're a city of just raw land, and then we're not a city.
I would tell when I was really heavy in my brokerage business, Tell a buyer, look, you can either get the house you want or the deal you want. There's just very unlikely that those two things are going to line up perfectly. So if you're ready to make
advice.
if you're ready to make concessions, there's a reason this house has been passed over.
On a home that might cost around $300 a square to build, with an end of day value of around $500 per square foot, your labor is probably only $100 a square. And that is generous, actually.
Really?
Yeah. So, because labor is less than half of the total cost of construction costs, and about 20% of the end of day value of the home. I told my engineer that. I said, we are going to pick 1 or 2 waivers. That's it. I don't want to go to them and say, oh, by the way, I know I already asked to not have to do any park space. Can I also do narrower streets? Can I also not do a sidewalk? Can I also not do a cul-de-sac? That's what your sanitation person wanted. Now I'm going to get none of them. So it's like a little kid. Do you want to stay up till 10 and ask nicely? Or do you want to go for midnight and also ask for ice cream too? And also ask to go to the park tomorrow and also ask. So I think that, that was,
pick your battles.
I'm a path of least resistance.
And the network analysis is just, do they have water supply in the area essentially to let us tap in?
Do our water pressures meet the minimum so that when you turn on your faucet, like it's not just a drip system, it's going to flow out and you can wash your hands. So stuff.
There's in our jurisdiction, about $1,500 worth of plan check. So I get that they're kind of auditing the plans for code. So, and then the city inspector is auditing the build to the plans. It just kind of cascades down. That being said, the amount of deviation away from the plans and the amount of things that are either not caught in plan check or called out as simple labeling conventions is. We're paying almost $1 million for this. We will have almost another $1 million in engineering, infrastructure, the cul-de-sac, everything. The grading sits on a hillside, and it's a mess. It's going to be a lot of work to get these things kind of ready.
Goes in, you're
yeah,
$2 million.
Easily. It might even be a little bit more. So it may be 2.1 or 2.15. So you can see when that is the numerator. I want to minimize the lot cost by maximizing the denominator, i.e. the total amount of home sites. It just seems like once you move your shovel, just figure $70,000 and then go up from there. So, and that's our cost. That's not a company being greedy. That's us paying the excavator, us paying the rebar people, us paying the pool plumbers directly. So those are our costs. I'm talking about pulling back the curtain. I mean, that shows you. Yeah. Those are our true costs. That's what we're spending on a pool. And 10 years ago, companies were retailing pools for $40,000.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. The model that we think of, but that model home is permitted, and then all you have to do is submit. So all that engineering is permitted, all the architecturals are permitted, all the codes that are referenced are permitted, and then all you have to do is submit with that home on that lot. And then the city grants you that permit, but it's a production permit or a tract home permit. What does that do to our home prices? A lot of like I mentioned, a lot of appliances and Samsung and things like that, they come from Asia and they're imported. Thankfully, homes are one of the last things still built by hand and one of the last things that you cannot import.
Right.
But so many of the goods that go into that home. Maybe the copper comes from China for the electricity, depending on where you're sourcing it from. And we're closed out 24 with $1 billion in investor purchases in the greater Las Vegas market. As a whole, we're kind of leading the nation when it comes to investor purchases. Us in Denver and Phoenix, kind of the suburban sprawl where it's easier to buy a block of homes, maybe not on the same block, but a block of homes that are relatively easy to manage versus a more fragmented market on the East Coast where it's harder to manage, maybe a suburb that's 20 miles this way, 20 miles that way. So we're still leading the nation with investor purchases, and the nation is leading the world in the amount of investor purchases into single family residential. So that's yet another backstop, and I think that's putting a lot of upward pressure on that appreciation, and maybe that's getting us the 4 and 5% appreciation that we saw last year. I haven't had a home that sold for north of $2 million that didn't have at least $30,000 worth of appliances in it. Because where do you stop? We should probably have an ice maker, under counter ice maker that's plumbed in, and we should probably have fridge columns, and we should probably make them panel ready and do the cabinet panels. And
the nicer you make those fridge columns, now this has to match, and now that has to go, and this has, you kind of, do you want to keep the same brand, and then you're
right. That's right. And before you know it, you've spent $40,000 to $50,000.
Yep.
The most I've ever spent was $70,000
on an appliance package.
An appliance package for a $3 million home.
But that home warranted it.
It did, 100%.
Yeah, had to.
It did, 100%.
You had to.
And end of day buyer actually noted the high-end appliance package that tipped him over from buying a home that
and it was good. It was
really
great stuff. I've shared it over time. It was a fun
package.
one.
So the housing market is, as you said, it's not very exciting. It's just not a tumultuous year. It's been stable for the last more or less 2.5 years, I would say. Probably, well, we're going up probably on 3 years. I think it really started to stabilize in middle of 2022, which is what the intention was, to get a lid on that runaway kind of price gains that we were seeing, and that worked. Thankfully, we've just gone into a prolonged period of very stable, healthy appreciation and a lot of other factors that are affecting the market, not necessarily price gains. So inventory obviously remains really constrained, and then mortgage rates. And I think that kind of those two things together have kind of honestly functioned as a backstop. But my interest is, let's get into this project. Let's develop it. Let's move on to the next one. This is not my end all be all. This is not my opus. I'm not here to make this little hillside on Horizon Ridge a 15 home subdivision. I don't care. Make it 7.
Right.
I'll leave 23,000 square feet of preserved hillside, and we'll move on. I'm not going to fight on the common area element. I'm going to reduce the zoning. I'm not going to fight on the street width. I'll give them the street width. Right? So that's kind of, wait a minute, 4 homes have sold in the last few months on this very street, and this one had this pool, and this one didn't have a pool, and this one had this finishes, and this one has this floor
And you
plan.
can even scroll through the house and see this looks like that looks like this, ours has this that
Right.
this didn't have, and yeah.
So I think in many ways that's why I throw history out, because I can't believe I just said that. Because there's never been a time like this where buyers had and just general public had so much knowledge at their fingertips of the real estate market. It's in the street.
And people will say, builders, they don't build like they used to. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't have that same charm.
And they're right.
But they don't know the backstory as to why. It isn't that you had some idea to build less houses and put in more street. No, there are
these rules. Trust me, I don't want to do too.
Thanks for tuning into the Trust the Process podcast. Make sure to follow us on Spotify to stay in the loop with the latest insights, project updates, and everything in between. See you next time.